Lidia Morawska. A physicist specialising in research on air quality and its impact on human health, Professor Morawska helped stop the COVID-19 pandemic by proving the virus is airborne. She does her best thinking while walking. When I look out the window of my house in Brisbane, Australia, I see a mountain. It takes me an hour to hike to the top and back. As soon as I start walking, my brain cells open up and I find solutions to nagging research problems, says Professor Lidia Morawska, the director of the International Laboratory for Air Quality and Health at Australia's Queensland University of Technology. Since she was a child, outdoor sports have been an important part of her life. She particularly enjoys skiing and sailing. The latter is a passion inherited from her father, Henryk Jaskula, the first Pole and third yachtsman in the world to single-handedly circumnavigate the globe under sail. Like her father, Professor Morawska has a skipper's license and broad horizons. Born in 1952 in Tarnów, Morawska spent her youth in Przemyśl. She decided to become a nuclear physicist when she was still in her primary school. Her studies at the Jagiellonian University in Kraków sparked an interest in environmental radioactivity. She started working on radon, a noble gas that is the decay product of radium, a chemical element discovered in 1898 by the Polish Nobel laureate Maria Skłodowska-Curie. In air, radon decays into radioactive heavy metal progenies. Inhaled with air, they expose us to radiation, explains Professor Morawska. After obtaining her doctorate, she continued her radon research in Poland and starting in 1987 at the University of Toronto. The Canadian school offered her access to laboratory apparatus unavailable at that time in Poland, allowing her to measure the attachment of radon progeny to ultrafine particles in the air. After deciding there was nothing more she could learn about radon, Professor Morawska started casting around for a new area of research. One day in 1991, out of curiosity, instead of taking measurements in the laboratory test chamber, I stuck the apparatus probe out the window, right onto a busy street in downtown Toronto. To my astonishment, I detected tremendous concentrations of ultrafine particles in the air, with concentrations of hundreds of thousands per cubic centimetre. There was no scientific literature on this subject. I thought, wow, this is for me, recalls Professor Morawska. Encouraged by an Australian colleague, she moved to Brisbane to work at the Queensland University of Technology, where she set up her own research team. In 2004, her laboratory started official cooperation with the World Health Organization, WHO, providing advice used to developing air quality guidelines. In 2021, after 5 years as the co-chair of a working group of scientists, she succeeded in guiding the team to completion and publishing the WHO air quality guidelines. However, these guidelines focused on airborne pollutants, for example those caused by public transport, rather than on pathogens such as viruses. When Italy became the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020, Morawska discussed the situation with an Italian colleague who expressed surprise that people were still falling ill and dying in great numbers, even though they disinfected everything in line with the WHO recommendations. She decided she had to convince the WHO that COVID-19 transmission was not fomite-based, deriving from contact with hands or surfaces, but primarily airborne. Morawska's previous research had already shown this to be true for the initial SARS-CoV-1 outbreak in 2003. In 3 days, the professor drew up a petition to the WHO's Director General, later signed by 236 experts from around the world. However, it took several months and publication of the recommendations in a prestigious scientific journal for the WHO to change its approach. The world then learned that ventilation of enclosed spaces was required to remove virus particles from the air. Professor Morawska's determination probably saved thousands of lives, which is why in 2021, Time magazine included her among the world's 100 most influential people in the Innovators category. Professor Morawska wants her discoveries to have practical applications. For example, she has demonstrated that buildings should be designed to give flats or offices high ceilings and displacement ventilation, injecting clean air at floor level and sucking out waste air at ceiling height. She has also been working to establish indoor air quality standards, an undertaking no country has yet managed to implement. In 2023, Lidia Morawska became the first Pole to receive the L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Award. Professor Morawska's life motto has always been to pursue your interests and follow your dreams without thinking for a moment that something is unattainable.